Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin the second session. I am Aisha Sikandar, Research Associate at Strategic Vision Institute. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the second session for the day, focused on the theme of autonomy in warfare, artificial intelligence, and robotics. As we stand on the brink of new era in military technology, the integration of AI and robotics in warfare presents both unprecedented opportunities and profound challenges. We look forward to an engaging session that will not only broaden our understanding, but also spark meaningful conversations about the future of warfare in the age of artificial intelligence and robotics. In this session, we are joined by 3 researchers and a moderator. This session will be moderated by Mr. Khalid Banoori. Mr. Khalid Banoori is a practitioner and a scholar with diverse interests and experiences spread over 44 years in public service. He was the first Director General Arms Control and Disarmament Affairs Branch at SPD and advisor on arms control and diplomacy, wherein he contributed to policy making in nuclear, missile, space, chemical and biological control, strategic export controls, South Asian security and policy, and international law. He is also member expert oversight board for strategic control, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of Pakistan, advisor training project Phoenix PAF, member administrative advisory board, Pakistan Nuclear Society, and member board of advisors Arms Control and Disarmament Center at Institute of Strategic Studies. Our first conference speaker for this session would be Mr. Shah Muhammad. Mr. Shah is a researcher at Center for Aerospace and Security Studies, Islamabad. He is a gold medalist in MPhil Peace and Conflict Studies from NUST University, Islamabad. He has been a research fellow at Hans Seidel Foundation, Germany, and policy fellow at the British Council. His areas of scholarly interests are emerging technologies, security, and global governance. Mr. Shah will be presenting his paper titled Robotic Transformations in the Character of Warfare, Strategic Implications, and Ethical Dilemma. Our second conference speaker for this session would be Ms. Amber Afreen Abid. Ms. Amber Afreen is a research officer at Strategic Vision Institute. She holds an MPhil degree in Strategic Studies from NDU Islamabad. Her research interests include nuclear politics, nuclear deterrence, proliferation and non-proliferation regimes, and changing nuclear strategies in South Asia. Today, she will be presenting her paper titled AI-Driven Military Capabilities and Their Impact on South Asian Strategic Stability. Our third and last conference speaker for this session would be Mr. Abdul Samad. Mr. Abdul Samad has a bachelor's degree in international politics from Georgetown University School of Foreign Service in US and an MA degree in modern Indian studies from Germany. He is currently working as a research officer at Center for International and Strategic Studies, Sindh, where he focuses on emerging technologies, particularly AI, drones, and lethal autonomous weapon systems. Mr. Samad will be presenting his paper titled Governing Autonomous Weapon Systems, Challenges and Future Prospects. With this, I would now kindly request Mr. Khalid Banoori to take over the session as a moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these generous introductions. I think I want to begin with the chair's prerogative, and here are a few thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will agree with me or bear with me. We are left with 1 hour before lunch. We are the ones that are standing between you and lunch, so Adil, stand corrected on this one. So here are 2 things I'm going to request you. One, that all of you keep your main presentations as a gist for 5 to 7 minutes. Present your broad thoughts on that so that there's time for discussion, which is what the real essence of this will be. And the other prerogative I want to use is to change the sequence and request the lady to speak first. I hope you guys will be okay with that. So I'm going to just make 1 or 2 quick comments before I request you to talk about this. This session is about autonomy in warfare, and it is about artificial intelligence and robotics. Now, this naturally builds beyond what we have heard. So if the audience was interested in what was happening in the previous session, now is the time to build further. So that's a challenge for all four of us, I should say that. Let's just recall from President Putin's statement of whoever controls the AI will rule the world. There are so many beyond the Mackinder and Mahan theories now. That's the thing that I want to, and I want to start with a quick anecdotal story. Here's a fresh graduate of BS in medical sciences, and she finds a job. And the job is that she's supposed to sit in front of a computer and look at the internal organs of the human body all the time, how the blood flows, how the organs look. And her job for 8 hours every day is to point out, put a circle on any part of that body which is diseased, which is not normal. What is she really doing? What she really is doing is to preparing the data for the algorithm to find out what is healthy and what is not. That's the kind of baseline information we are providing to the algorithm, based on which they will provide us artificial intelligence and thoughts like that. So this is the kind of approach we want to have. Let's just begin with Amber, with you, talking about artificial intelligence and strategic stability. Go ahead. You have the floor, Madam, now. 5 to 7 minutes, please. The inherent flexibility of this generation is on demand now.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the topic of my presentation is the role of artificial intelligence in South Asian strategic stability. Ladies and gentlemen, AI is the ability of the machines to perform tasks that require human intelligence. AI is transforming the industries worldwide. Militaries across the globe are increasingly integrating AI into various aspects of warfare. As nations invest in AI technologies for military applications, the implications for strategic stability, especially in the regions with existing geopolitical tensions, become a critical area of study and concern. Today, the primary concern is that the militaries may underestimate, overstate, or overlook the potential shortcomings and risks associated with the use of current generation of AI technology in safety-critical military domains, particularly in the nuclear sphere. AI does not operate in isolation. It is unlikely to be a strategic game changer on its own. Instead, AI will amplify the destabilizing effects of existing capabilities. The integration of AI into military strategies has profound implications for strategic stability. The implications include speed. Speed is one of the primary concerns, as the pace with which it processes information and makes decisions often outpaces human cognitive capabilities. The rapid decision-making reduces the time available for human operators to respond to crises, potentially leading to miscalculation and unintended escalation during conflicts. As we know, effective deterrence relies on the credibility of the capability being communicated properly. When AI systems operate at machine speed, they may outpace human understanding, destabilizing strategic stability by increasing the risk of misinterpretation and miscalculation, potentially moving situations up the escalation ladder. Moreover, there is a risk of potential erosion of human control over the use of force. AI applications designed to assimilate large amounts of data accelerate the decision-making in warfare, compressing the observe, orient, act, decide, act, OODA decision-making loop. AI-augmented autonomous weapon can blur the distinction between conventional and nuclear forces. This ambiguity can lead to confusion and misinterpretation of military actions, as adversaries may not be able to discern whether an autonomous system is part of conventional or nuclear forces. Autonomous weapon system can act quickly and independently, reducing the time for human decision making. This rapid pace can lead to situations where decisions are made without full understanding or consideration of broader strategic context. In a crisis scenario, the use of AI-augmented weapons can lead to unintended escalation if these systems are misinterpreted as more aggressive than intended. There's also a risk of deliberate escalation into nuclear conflict due to conventional force asymmetry fueled by AI advances. AI-driven technologies increases the risk of accidental or inadvertent escalation due to system failure or the misuse of technology. Three overlapping mechanisms can lead to nuclear escalation, deliberate escalation, inadvertent, and accidental escalation. Furthermore, the arms race, the operational and strategic advantages by AI compels the strategic rivals to intelligence arms race. Competition causes them to eschew the limitations of AI, compromise the safety and verification standards to attain technological superiority. This increases the risk of catastrophic outcomes, further destabilizing the strategic landscape. The vulnerability to the adversarial attack, AI systems which rely heavily on vast amounts of data are susceptible to adversarial attacks. These vulnerabilities include cyber attack, data poisoning, and spoofing, each of which poses distinct risk to the military system. The dual-use nature of AI technology and its potential acquisition by non-state actors presents significant concerns for global security. The proliferation of AI technology has made advanced tools more accessible to a wider array of actors, including the non-state entities. Non-state actors can leverage the technology to enhance their capabilities in ways that were previously reserved for the nation states. Now, the AI in South Asia. The introduction of artificial intelligence into military operations is likely to have significant implications for strategic stability between India and Pakistan. India has made substantial advancement in AI-based weaponry, enhancing its military situational awareness and data interpretation capabilities. For example, the deployment of 140 AI-based surveillance systems on border with Pakistan includes high-resolution cameras, sensors, unmanned aerial vehicle feeds, and radar feeds. While Pakistan has not officially confirmed the integration of AI and machine learning into its military weaponry and defenses, it has begun to allocate funding towards initiatives aimed at harnessing the technologies. Moreover, India in 2019 established the High-Level Defense AI Council, tasked with fostering strategic military industry partnership, technology acquisition, data sharing, and research. This council aims to integrate AI into the Indian Armed Forces defense strategy with a focus on mechanized warfare, particularly along with the Pakistan's Southwest Command. The Indian Defense Minister further strengthened AI strategy by forming the Artificial Intelligence Military Council in 2002, which oversees the defense AI projects. It plans to develop several AI military products in the coming years. Moreover, as discussed earlier, India's ongoing collaboration with the United States through the annual 2+2 dialogue has also emphasized mutual cooperation in areas like cybersecurity, space technology, and AI, further enhancing its defense capabilities. Despite these progresses, Pakistan's progress in AI remains limited due to economic constraints, data availability, and shortage of AI experts. Now, in 2023, Ministry of Information Technology and Telecommunication published a draft on the National Artificial Intelligence Policy aimed at integrate advanced technologies. Moreover, Pakistan Air Force established a Center for Artificial Intelligence and Computing in 2020. Under the National Aerospace Science and Technology Park to further the AI development in both the military and the civilian domains. This marks a milestone in Pakistan's AI capacity, although its progress is still in the early stages. Now, the effect of AI on South Asian strategic stability. The introduction of AI into military operations has profound implications for strategic stability between India and Pakistan. AI has the capability to locate strategic targets with greater accuracy. The speed, as discussed earlier in the presentation, raises the likelihood of hasty decisions, leading to misinterpretations and escalation tensions between the two countries. And the risk of inadvertent escalations, the cyber attack, is also there. Moreover, the deepfake, AI-powered deepfake technologies could also become tools for spreading disinformation, further exploiting the fault lines between the two countries. Now, the possible solutions. Firstly, establishing international norms and regulations between India and Pakistan within the framework of prospective international regulations. Bilateral confidence building measures. India and Pakistan should engage in bilateral confidence building measures to address the specific risks posed by AI in the military dynamics. These should include to develop a code of conduct, track to diplomacy, which promotes informal dialogues between experts, retired officials, and academics to discuss AI-related challenges. And special dedicated communication channels should be developed, and the earlier ones should be properly utilized. The further risk reduction measures at the technical, organizational, and the certain policy measures should also be taken, and fostering the understanding and communication through seminars and trainings, and the integration of AI into the military systems requires sustained diplomatic engagements, technical collaboration, and continuous dialogue. Then the transparency and information sharing are essential to reducing AI risks.
Thank you. You can't solve all the problems today. Artificial intelligence has lots of problems, but thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you, sir.
If there's going to be one or two things that one wants to think of deliberating further, one will be the speed of decision making, the other will be escalation control. These are the thoughts that I would keep in view. But thank you for making that adjustment, Amber. That has been extremely useful. I would request Mr. Shah Mohammed now to take on the objective of saying what he wants to say and yet try for the 5 to 7 minutes thing. Thank you.
All right. The esteemed experts, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. It's an honor and pleasure to be a part of SVI's national conference. The title of my paper is Robotic Transformations in the Character of Warfare, Strategic Implications and Ethical Dilemma. The strategists affiliated with the US military reported back in 2007 that it was the dawn of unmanned revolution in military affairs. The contemporary developments have compelled the scholars to wonder if autonomous revolution in military affairs is underway in the age of fourth industrial revolution. In a sense, a military is likely to have an edge over the adversary if it is able to draw the maximum strategic potential out of the military revolutions of that particular era. In this backdrop, US military is conducting multi-domain exercises known as Project Convergence to test military robots for next generation warfare. Similarly, China is conducting Golden Dragon exercises to develop its operational readiness for robotic warfare. Now, these are the research questions. You can go through them, and I would be looking at especially two kinds of military robots: unmanned ground vehicles, UGVs, and unmanned underwater vehicles, UUVs, with special focus on the US and Chinese militaries. And I'll be looking at three indicators while analyzing the transformations in the character of warfare: force multiplication, enhanced precision, and reduced risk to human soldiers. First of all, the US military. The US military has successfully tested a robotic dog which has an AI-enabled rifle. These could be termed AI-driven lethal autonomous weapon systems, LAWS. Robotic dog leverages AI-augmented digital imaging system to autonomously scout and engage targets. Now, these could prove to be the potent force multipliers on the battlefield because they have AI-augmented scouting and precision strike capability. I'll skip the second one due to the limitations of the time. I'll jump to the third one. The US Navy is currently developing submarine-launched UUV called REMUS, which has TTLR capability. TTLR stands for Torpedo Tube Launch and Recovery. Although UUVs have been deployed in the past, TTLR capability is a significant force multiplier, which allows swift deployment and retrieval of the UUV. Now, I'm going to need your undivided attention here, please. A general, a top retired general of the US Army recently stated that in the next 10 to 15 years, 1/3 of the US military will comprise robots and AI systems. Now, in light of this disclosure, it could be said that the transformations, robotic transformations in the character of warfare could be achieved by the US military in the next 10 to 15 years. The transformations in terms of force multiplication and enhanced precision could get multiplied and amplified if all the robots are integrated through an advanced command and control system which has its own autonomous characteristics. Now, China. China is leading the world in advanced robotics with a global share of 28%, followed by the US with a share of 25%. China has recently showcased robotic dog at its Golden Dragon exercises, and it is mounted with a rifle. These have the capability to undertake reconnaissance and strike operations. They could act as significant force multipliers, but unlike the robotic dog of US military, these do not have AI-enabled features. I'll skip the second one, jumping directly to the third one. China is making significant headways in the UUVs. According to the declassified details, China successfully tested an autonomous and AI-enabled submarine drone in Taiwan Strait in 2010. This kind of drone could autonomously scout and strike the target with a torpedo without human intervention. So this is basically human out-of-the-loop model, human out-of-the-loop system. So after all these years, we can only imagine the scale and sophistication of the robotic strength of Chinese military. These are some statistics of the UGV and UUV market of the US and China. I'll skip this one. Now, this is what resonates with what Dr. Adil said earlier. Krepinevich analyzes the transformations in the character of warfare through the framework of reconnaissance strike complex. Krepinevich analyzes the transformations in terms of three indicators. First, grand vision. Second, new operational concepts. And third, exercises or trainings. Now, first of all, US and China appear to be clear in their grand vision, which is to maximize their national power through emerging technologies and gain strategic edge over the adversary. New operational concepts lay the basis for new doctrines and new strategies. US military has come up with robotics and autonomous system strategy, and China has come up with forward defense strategy. And of course, then both are undertaking exercises, Project Convergence exercise and China's Golden Dragon exercise. Strategic implications, the robotic developments undertaken by states could be viewed with suspicion and geopolitical anxiety by other states. This could lead to security dilemma and disruption in the balance of power, which could pave the way for a full-blown conflict. US and China are currently engaged in a tech war, and Project Convergence exercises had the presence of foreign militaries such as Japan and Australia. Now this signals robotic modernization of Indo-Asia-Pacific geopolitical alliance against China. On the other hand, China's exercises were conducted jointly with Cambodia, Malaysia, and Thailand. And of greater significance is the growing proximity, strategic proximity between China and Russia. Russia is building a combat army with autonomous capabilities, and China is facilitating Russia in that regard. So the security dilemma could flare up and it could go on to undermine international peace and security. The ethical challenges. First of all, the dehumanization of warfare could deprive the battlefield of the natural impulses of compassion, chivalry, and empathy. This could culminate in a future scenario where the decisions as profound as life and death would be taken by machines, not humans. And then the excessive weaponization of autonomous robots could make it very hard to comply with international humanitarian law. Who would be held accountable if a robot commits atrocities or violates IHL principles such as distinction and proportionality? Who would be held accountable? Military commander, developer, defense companies, or military organization as a whole? So this is an open question that still confuses military strategists. And then there is a legitimate concern regarding AI's black box problem. It means that AI systems can sometimes take decisions which humans can neither predict nor control. Because through machine learning, AI systems develop an independent self of their own. So AI-driven robots could bring about unwanted and unforeseen consequences at the tactical and operational levels. In April 2024, an international conference was convened in Vienna. All right, sir, just 1 minute. It had high-ranking presence from 140 countries, and the participants were unanimous that the growing autonomy in warfare is an ethical concern for global community. And then the Australian foreign minister said that this is the Oppenheimer movement of our generation. The way forward, first of all, the states need to devise bilateral and multilateral treaties to regulate ongoing robotic arms race, and then there is a need for regulatory measures to control the lethality of autonomous laws as proposed by UN Secretary General. The IHL needs to adapt to the technological advancement, especially autonomous robots, and I hereby through this paper and through this presentation advocate human in the loop model, and the militaries need to mention it in their doctrines very clearly that the militaries won't exceed human in the loop model. And then there is a need for biomimetic morality through which we artificially and mechanically develop morality in robots.
Thanks.
So that was all from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shah Mohammad, for a very illuminating presentation. I think 2 or 3 things that will gather some attention, of course, is where you ended, the human in the loop, the need for it, also the unpredictability of the black box. And Shah Mohammad also told us that both Americans and the Chinese have a robotics dog, but Chinese have a different dog. That's where it will make the difference. And that, but one point that will need more deliberation is how is the character war changing? Because the how part needs more deliberation while the technologies are advancing. And this is an area which needs, even Clausewitzian theories need to be revisited. So this is where we are. And now we have our final speaker, Mr. Abdul Samad. You have the floor, sir. Same regulation.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll jump straight into the topic, governing autonomous weapon systems. So I'll speak on the legal aspect of this debate. So my basic question that led me in this paper was, you have a debate that is going on since 10 years at the CCW, and still state parties have not been able to reach a settlement. The thrust of the paper is to understand why the CCW has made such limited progress, and also then I delve into the concepts such as meaningful human control and autonomy within the context of governing a law system. And then I also examine how different countries, major powers, have defined these systems and and have come in the debate, and then how future progress can be made in about this. So I'll begin with a definition. Definitions are very important. The ICRC has defined AWS as any system with autonomy in its critical functions. Now, why is this important? This is important because any system that can decide by itself when to attack without human control is problematic and has ethical implications. Also, it's important here to understand the difference between semi-autonomous and fully autonomous. Semi-autonomous, such as FPV drones, which we see in Russia, are under the control of human operators. Which means that the critical functions of target selection and engagement are with the human operators, and that there is human oversight. And which means that fully autonomous are those systems that are capable of controlling the entire weapons cycle of target identification, selection, engagement without any human involvement. This is obviously a red flag. I'll move on. CCW, the work has been going on, as I mentioned, since the last 10 years. They have a REFCON conference every 2 years. And in 2016, there was another group formed, which is the GGE. And the purpose of the GGE is to give recommendations to the CCW in the area of laws. I'll skip this part. You've already discussed this. Many states, I'll add here, have declared that CCW is the appropriate forum to advance international efforts, given the technical nature of the subject. And if you dive into the debates, it's very technical. So it's a lot of jargon involved. Some states, such as the US, have stated that any parallel attempts will lead to fragmentation and divergent approaches and should therefore be avoided. Okay, now this is a very important slide. So some of the topics of discussion at the CCW. How can existing IHL principles, which has been spoken about before, how can this be applied to laws? And is there a need to devise new legal rules to cover any loopholes or gaps? Second point, which is again very important, how do you reach a working definition? How can you regulate something without having the concept? And for the concept, you need to, state parties need to reach a working definition. Third point is linked with this, how to define meaningful human control. This is again a very complicated debate. 4 is the military applications of laws, and the future risk is number 5. I'll skip this. So in 2019, the state parties, they released something called the 11 Guiding Principles on Laws. These principles are touted as an achievement of the CCW work on laws, although the important thing here is that these are non-binding and not legally enforceable, and they showcase a general understanding of how states intend to approach. So these 11 guiding principles are not really a breakthrough, and they just give a sense of how future regulation can be made. Some basic points. The 2 most important points are that IHL applies to all future law systems. This is very important. Secondly, that human responsibility, that the human in the loop cannot be sacrificed. Okay, moving on. So you have multiple REFCON conferences, very engaging discussions, but ultimately it hasn't produced anything as yet. This is a timeline. It gives you a sense of the amount of work which is happening in these areas. Now so I'll move to explaining why. The why element is very important. So I identify 5 factors here why state parties have not been able to reach a settlement on laws. Firstly, the concept of autonomy itself is abstract, right? It's difficult to conceptualize, define, and outline in legal terms. So in the initial years, state parties wanted to agree upon a definition. That really hasn't happened. There's the argument in arms control that if you want to regulate something, you have to define it first. So that has not happened. Again, it's difficult to define autonomy because it's also difficult to understand where autonomy begins and ends. So laws are different from other weapon systems. They're different from chemical weapons, for example, where it's more easier to define these terms. I'll move on. Second part is, again, this applies to other weapon systems as well. It's difficult to establish an effective verification and enforcement mechanism. Um, yeah, that's third is that many states understand that laws will have many significant benefits in the future. So states that are currently investing in the development of AWS have the incentive to stall progress. This list also includes India, by the way. Moving on, you have less appetite for arms control, US-China geopolitics, so that also strains efforts at the CCW. Fifth is that CCW is a forum based on consensus. So even if you have one state which is not subscribing to a definition, it kills all progress. Okay, now very quickly, the debate over defining AWS is expected to be driven by the political and strategic objectives of competing global powers. So again, the interest of major powers is a major obstacle to progress at the CCW. Just one short thing here that countries like France and the UK, for example, have defined AWS in a way which makes it difficult to reach a common understanding. I won't delve into, I don't have time for this. German one I'll also skip. Way forward. The UN Secretary General has urged state parties to conclude a settlement by 2026, which seems rather difficult for now. So what do you do now? So you build a normative framework, you build best practices. It has been argued that in the absence of a binding legal instrument, the next best alternative is to agree on a set of best practices. Again, the main important word is norm building. How do you build a global norm on this? And one idea is that you should move outside of the CCW, go to the General Assembly, and which does not require a consensus, by the way. Some people have said that the CCW is a talking shop, it's a waste of time, it's been 10 years. But I believe that it's important because it provides opportunities and it helps build a common understanding on issues. It takes time. History can serve as a guide here. You have had examples of systems which were regulated outside the confines of the CCW, landmines and cluster munitions. Final word. So I won't say that CCW is a talking shop. There is no shortage of technical expertise within these two forums. There has been a very good body of work on the questions of autonomy and meaningful human control. This is the thrust of my conclusion. The crucial missing element is the political will of major powers. And without great power leadership, you cannot have progress on this forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdul Samad, for very illuminating things as well. I think two immediate or quick takeaways are, one, that international humanitarian law, the gaps are already appearing or where it is wanting, and also that perhaps because there's a beeline for more acquisitions of the artificial intelligence or such technologies, the appetite for regulation is pretty low and will remain so in that way. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I kind of pushed around my panelists, but then I looked away as well. I hope you noticed that. You've heard three very fascinating presentations, I would say. We have about 20 minutes and I reckon the time for two sets of questions. So please, when you say so, just quickly say who you are, point out if the question is to whoever is it addressed to, and be crisp with your questions. We'll take two sets of questions one by one. Let's begin. Let the games roll now. All right, we'll go in this order, 1, 2, and 3, in that order. To this lady first.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shahnur Iqbal, and my question is directed to the worthy panelists. Anyone who likes to answer, can do so. So Pakistan clearly lags behind in the expansive global arms race, especially with AI and robotics coming into the mix. And it would need to do a lot to balance the disproportionality created, to say the least. But in the essence of making the most of what we have, what can Pakistan do to protect itself and deter, if not counter, the threats it faces or could face in the near future? Thank you.
Thank you. This is to the whole panel, right? No, at the back first, and then you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Sardar Janze. I'm Research Associate of ISSI. Firstly, I congratulate SVI for organizing such much needed national conference. There has been a notion that we are actually having lack of experts. So after seeing this conference, I am very much confident that we'll get some experts at the end. So my question is directed to the first speaker. There was the talk about the track to diplomacy and the cooperative measures, which has been identified in the 73rd UNGA meeting that was proposed by China about the cooperation regarding AI. The question here arises that whenever we see space weaponization process, AI weaponization process, we always say that Pakistan need to cooperate, Pakistan need to promote track to diplomacy in this very formulative process. But I think we cannot throw stones in answers to the gunshots. We must have some prerogative measures that needs to be answered. And history is evident that there has been the phenomena of security dilemma, deterrence, arms race, and all these have been in the traditional measures as well. And when we have moved on from the traditional measures to the emerging technologies, these again shift from those approaches to these approaches. So we need more focused approach. And for that, I guess we need collaborative measures between experts and the multidimensional disciplines, I would say.
So your question is about what collaborative measures should be taken?
Yeah, how collaborative measures should be taken more focusedly in interdisciplinary measures.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so my question is that is a very interesting discussion. My name is Zohaib Altaf and I'm from CIS AJK. I'm a research officer. So my question is that there is so much talk about that autonomous weapon and responsibility, but there is another concept that is linked with it, that is human-machine interface, and there are technologies like Neuralink that are being experimented on and also are also in the test stage. So what is the chances of human-machine interface in face of the autonomy and the challenges we are facing due to this?
And Zohaib, who are you addressing this to?
Anyone can answer.
All right. Okay, we have 3 questions. Shall we go in the order that they came? Can you take the first one?
About the first question, I would say Pakistan has economic constraints, and Pakistan doesn't indulge in any kind of arms race with India, or obviously with India. But what we do is, in nuclear or any other sphere, we remain to minimum credible level. We attain a technology that is credible enough and should be at the minimum level. So that's how we go in AI as well. That's how we go in nuclear as well. So that's what I think Pakistan can do to counter.
I would like to add something here that there's actually so much work being done in AI. It's just that it doesn't come in the public domain so much. So you have multiple labs, AI labs in every city, based in different universities. There's work happening in the civilian sector. There are AI startups in Pakistan. The military is doing its own work. Pakistan is expected to announce its national AI policy. India still hasn't announced its policy, by the way. So given that our competition is with India, we're not still so far behind. It's another thing that India is throwing more money at the AI because there are more startups. But I think that work is being done, and there's need for more cooperation between all stakeholders, so academia, industry, and government. Thank you.
I would like to respond to the first question, what Pakistan can do. As you all know that there are 2 schools of thoughts, or you can say 2 sides. with regards to emerging technologies in the age of globalization. The globalization, internationalization of the emerging technologies, and then the regionalization or the localization of emerging technologies. So I think we need to choose a side. We have recently noticed that a few weeks ago, I think a week ago, global IT outage occurred. And it disrupted various sectors, and it was a big blow to Microsoft, multinational companies, and then the integrated networks. The countries which had indigenous networks, regionalized networks, localized data centers, they were protected, such as China, Russia, and a few others. So this is what we need to do. I recently wrote a paper for a journal which is focused on technological sovereignty with a case study of China. So I think this is what we need to do. We need to have technological sovereignty for the purpose of two things: indigenization and self-control and strategic autonomy. But unfortunately, that cannot be possible without an adequate level of economic security. So this is my take on it.
So this discussion also partially answers Janzeb's question, but does anyone want to add to this collaborative side? Anything else to add?
Sure. Furthermore, there could be like the educational in the exchange programs, the training of the professionals. As what we see is AI technology is relatively new, so people don't know much about it, and even the professionals may take hasty decisions, and they don't even in the pursuit of getting the technology, they just don't understand it properly, and states are acquiring it, which is the biggest hurdle. And the biggest risk, actually. So the training of the professionals and the education in this regard is really, really essential.
Okay, we have one more question on the human-machine interface. Anyone wants to? Yeah, I think you should.
I think this is a very relevant question. You must have heard about Project Avatar. It was built by US Department of Homeland Security, and it was deployed on the US-Mexican border. So what it does is that it provides an interface, user-friendly interface, and facilitates the customs officials, and it basically screens the individuals and citizens crossing the border, US-Mexico border. So it was very successful. It was AI enabled, and it could autonomously flag the suspicious people. So these developments have been underway, and then two military exercises that I pointed out in my presentation: Project Convergence, and then China's Golden Dragon exercises. Those are all designed for the purpose of facilitating and properly formalizing human-machine interfaces, and how those could be translated at the tactical level at the actual battlefield. But the problem is that there are certain technical complexities that humans are not being able to fully control the machines, or there are certain technical and operational issues for which the human machine interface is still underway, and it has not been fully operationalized.
Thank you. While you gather your thoughts for the second round of questions, here's one that comes from an online questionnaire, and this is about deepfake. It's a longish statement, but it's about deepfake. And the question is, what policy have we adopted at national level for these areas where voice generation, visual presentation, you can't tell it whether it's real or not? And what can be done to mitigate this? Anyone can take this question.
I mean, deepfakes represent a major challenge, and I mean, if the US and other major powers have not been able to identify a solution, so it's a major problem, and people are saying that in a few years, evidence would be difficult to admit in a court of law, because you won't be able to tell if it's a doctored video or if it's real. So I think at the national level, there's a lack of awareness about the threat, and this is something that more work will be done in the future. That's my understanding.
I would like to add to it that these are technological issues, and the solutions would also be technological. So algorithm can only be countered by algorithm. So if there are deep fakes being generated, you need to develop counter algorithms that could identify between the organic content and the deep fakes. And I think this requires much bigger and higher technological advancement, technical knowledge, and the people, the experts who could be involved in the policy making, right? Even the major powers have not been able to develop a proper policy. There are policies on artificial intelligence, but there are no policies on specific policies on deep fakes. So I think there is a gap in this, and there is a much larger way to go for us, because this is an area that needs to be explored.
I think one way to look at this, to sum up this question would be to think more about forensics and how to evolve them. To what extent can it actually tell deepfake, and these are the technologies that need to evolve, and that's the point our panelists made. Madam at the back, yes, please go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
I just have a comment. And that comment is that where we look at technology in concrete form, it may end up providing some ceiling. We have seen various weapon systems being put under certain command structures, ceilings. When it comes to artificial intelligence, there is no bar to how much you can stretch your imagination, how much you can work on whatever you need to. So at the same time, you have also pointed out one notion about there being so many startups in Pakistan which are working on artificial intelligence, which are tapped, yet not fully integrated. So I think we need to sit and have a very serious conversation about how we actually start with AI training from the inception, a notion that I think was part of the larger enterprise of having the science school as well, the STEM education coming up from the very basic school level and taking these notions to a very greater level where you have a very strong core of dedicated people looking into it. Thank you so much. This was just a thought that
Thank you. It's a comment, but if there's any reaction, yeah.
I agree. I actually spoke to an AI startup a few years back as part of fieldwork. And he was based in Karachi. He had a startup called Crop2X. It was in agriculture. So he was claiming that he'll double the yield if you give him all the information. So I recently got to know that he has moved to Finland and he's not in Pakistan anymore.
Thank you so much for the comment, ma'am. I personally don't believe in the leapfrog notion. You can leapfrog and make significant progress in fourth industrial revolution without making adequate progress in second and third industrial revolution. For example, if you don't have electricity, if you don't have the internet, electricity belongs to second industrial revolution, internet belongs to third industrial revolution, then how can you make progress in AI? So we need to take things in parallel. Agriculture, industry, internet. We need to make adequate progress in second and third industrial revolution to establish a base, a robust base for the fourth industrial revolution.
Well, I think I would wind this particular point up by saying, when you have a potential which states have, you need to start thinking of tapping it before you really build to an ideal situation. So the truth is perhaps somewhere in between of how do you do that. And one way could be to actually think of integration of various little startups or initiatives. The challenge in that would be each startup would have its commercial confidentiality. So it's going to take time, but those conversations can start, and that's a useful thing. We are ready for a second round of questions, if there are any. Otherwise, you'll have to bear with me for next 6 or 7 minutes. But are there any questions? All right. That lady at the back. Anyone else has a question? Please just raise your hand so that I know that. All right. So we have 3 questions now.
Thank you, sir, for providing me the chance. I am Siddha Rahman. My question is relating to the fact that these technologies are growing and developing, and they are going to be proven as more smarter and more intelligent than human beings. Then there is a possibility that they may go out of the human hands and and so on. So they can be dangerous and threatening in that direction too. So is there any thinking on the ground that there should be some code of conduct or laws that these technologies are designed in a manner that they should not go out of human hands, except for the except for the Hollywood and Bollywood movies here? Thank you.
Madam, are you addressing it to a particular panelist?
I would like to respond to.
Okay. All right. We have two more questioners here. Two gentlemen in the front.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. This is for the export controls at international regime. And my last question would be, was there any policy decision at any level for considering or negotiating and nuclear security, this assurances with the China or maybe with, the new forums are being evolving like SCO and AUKUS. Why not to have a long-term deal, like 100-year deal, like submarine deal, where we can have plenty of technology coming towards your direction, and also to have an ecosystem, have your own ecosystem, and to have an international ecosystem with some external players. As we have seen, the US and the China are the major leading players. So is there any possibility so we can go into that negotiation? The Japanese, after the World War, they did not spend enough into the military affairs. So can we now take that lesson from, that history and move forward in a direction that will be more integrating towards the economy and the...
I have, several questions from the three panelists, and I think all questions are to the panel, so we can go in any sequence. We'll start with you if you have any reactions to any of the questions, and then we go in this order. The first question is about, what about the dangers of AI? Although this particular session is about warfare and warfare-related things, but what about the dangers of AI? Anyone can, if you care to comment.
Sure. To that I would say only the risk associated with the AI are there, but we can't leave the weapons especially completely, we can't have completely autonomous weapons. Human has to be in the loop. So human integration is essential in that, and there should be a consensus at the international level, and there is consensus to some extent as well between the leading states that the human integration is essential in the autonomous weapon, in the operation of the autonomous weapons.
Any other reaction? Okay, you can come back to it.
Yes, sir.
Sure, yeah, it's a very important question, and it's a question being asked increasingly all over the world. So if you read up on the new EU AI Act, that is the world's first comprehensive AI law that identifies different risk areas. So there are some high risk areas, medicine, for example. So that is the first attempt. It's still work in progress. US, China, other major powers are not so heavily invested in the ethics and regulation of AI because they are still working on it. So the EU, if you look up that, they have set the benchmark actually. Thank you.
Regarding the first question, I think the first question was related to AI's black box problem. It means that through algorithms, AI develops an independent personality which we can neither predict nor control. So it can get out of hand, it can supersede human intelligence. But again, as I said, only algorithm can counter the algorithm. So there are certain self-disarmament and self-destruction protocols that can be incorporated into algorithms. For example, if it starts doing something unforeseen, unwanted, lethal, then it can disarm itself, destruct itself. So there are certain algorithms in place, but what if the black box takes over and supersedes those algorithms as well? So this is the complexity of AI's black box. And then, sir, you talked about data. I think data collection is not a problem. The problem is data processing. For data processing, you need big amounts of energy and the resources, finances. So we need to have big data processing systems in place for the AI systems to work. And thirdly, human versus machine. Sir, I haven't come across any scenario where robotic dogs have been at loggerheads with humans. But the exercises that I mentioned, Project Convergence and then Golden Dragon exercises, actually, human has an operator, remote control, and it is operating the dog. And dog can facilitate human at the battlefield. For example, it can take bullets for humans, and it can also access the difficult terrain and allow some tactical flexibility to human soldiers. So this is how it is.
Two or three aspects that yet, I mean, they've come in discussion obliquely, but they need to also be addressed by the panel. One is about export controls. This has been said in various ways, but this was a specific question. Also, the policy decisions relating to nuclear security and the balancing with the concerns, and creating our own ecosystem as a whole. These are, if they, so I'm going to give you a chance to make your last comments, and let's go in this order. Anything on these questions or anything to add? So please go ahead.
I would just add in the end that we need to have a grand vision, just as I mentioned in my presentation, that the prominent military strategists and scholars do not believe in the theory of technological determinism. They do not see technology as the sole force multiplier, as the only source of revolution in military affairs. You need to have new operational concepts. You need to have a grand vision, just as Krapinovich says. So our military, civil military leadership needs to have a grand vision of what it needs to do with technology, right? So first, grand vision needs to be in place, and the policy and the strategy will flow out of that grand vision. And the doctrines, the strategies need to reflect that grand vision. So this is how it needs to go. And of course, public-private partnerships, educating the young minds, bringing them to the policy, to offering them financial assistance to work on these startups. This is given. This needs to happen. But as I already stated, we cannot progress in fourth industrial revolution while lagging in second and third industrial revolution. So we need to progress in parallel. These are my last thoughts.
I would say that Pakistan has a significant youth bulge, and this presents a big opportunity. So if we can train our youth, train them in the jobs of the future, give them the skills, it's a big opportunity. What I think is important is that we need to come up with the national AI policy, and then things flow from there. And we need to integrate all the stakeholders. I would say that India will keep pushing us in this domain. So maybe that's a good thing for us, and I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic. I think that there's good work being done. However, is a lot of lack of awareness. And what is also important is that our highest ranking officials should be told these things again and again. Thank you.
Sir, I would say I'm really hopeful about the future, as I've seen students like in the private schools, as Sir said, they are teaching certain subjects like robotics and AI-related subjects. So the upcoming generation would be more interested in this, and there would be more progress in the upcoming years. And there should be more CBMs and, at all the levels, and the training and the seminar programs should more be conducted to raise the awareness about this issue.
Thank you. Thank you, all panelists. I have a few comments made, but I'd rather stand. So I need about 58 minutes to give you my thoughts. And if you don't have that kind of time, let me just bring it into a very, very crisp way of how I look at this. The challenge is how to close this kind of a session where you have a wide scope and some of those details which are yet evolving, and you wonder where exactly would this path go. So if you're going to think of those, I would rather choose to remain anecdotal. And one of the things that comes to mind is talking to a group of millennials, people who thought they were doing very well in their professionals positions. There was a question somebody asked me about what is the future of warfare in 100 years from now. And I looked at those people and I said, you shouldn't have started me on philosophy, but here is a thought that I want to give you. So I would like to repeat that thought here. This is the year 2024. A child who will be born in this year will turn like, what, 76 years old at the turn of the century. That child will be physically much fitter and mentally much more agile, let's say as a sample, better than anyone in this room at that age, 76. That's the kind of future of how humans are going to go. And if that you relate with the kind of technologies that you could evolve, it's limitless how could you think about that. The reasons are biotechnology, the algorithms, the development of that is actually going to take us into that realm, part of which is still ambiguous in various ways. So that's one thought. And I could say several things on the discussion that I've had or earlier, but here is something that I want to look back at the actual title of this particular panel, Autonomy in Warfare, Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, and just give you one example from, guess what, literature. There's a book which is fiction. It's called, and I recommend to everyone who's interested, everyone in this room, it's called 2034, A Novel of the Next World War. And there are several interesting things in that. It also includes nuclear exchange and so on and so forth. But here are 2 or 3 things that actually point at what artificial intelligence can do and what can be the possible limitations of it. It starts with South China Sea, predictably, in which American ships try to rescue a Chinese barge and find out accidentally that it has the kind of avionics that no one has ever heard about. And then one thing leads to another, let this go, etc. But what happens almost immediately is a complete cyber blackout. No information in or out, no sunlight. And then one thing leads to another. So think of a situation, 2 major powers that already have conflicts and have nuclear weapons, and they have come into a situation where it's complete silence. You cannot talk to anyone. And now relate it with the kind of things that you're discussing here. Artificial intelligence, what is really happening in artificial intelligence? Computers are talking to computers who are talking to humans and vice versa. And you take out the communication completely, total darkness, silence. A recipe for miscalculation, disinformation, speculation, and taking decisions. Those decisions could go wrong. In this novel, they do go wrong. And then there are more